Hi Queen family, how are you doing today? How are you doing? Today we were on the go in the morning. I was taking somebody, doing my normal regular jobs today, taking my husband around, helping him to do some tasks, helping him with the drive, taking him places. Yes, it's another sunny day, which is amazing. I'm so happy about the fact that we have some sunshine, by the way. Today we have a very, very important topic. This one is mainly for the girls. And I'm going to show you a little bit around. You'll be seeing as I'm talking. Sometimes you see my face, sometimes you won't, because I don't have the best lighting where I am right now. I'm actually waiting to have my car tire fixed. They discovered that I actually have a puncture, Unfortunately, as I think I parked somewhere, there were some nails on the ground and I picked up a nail, unfortunately. So I'm waiting at Quick Fit while they fix the tire. So I'm in the car. I decided, let me use this opportunity to vlog, to record something for you guys. And mainly this one is for the ladies, although the men are welcome to listen, because it also concerns you as a man. This topic is about domestic situationships in this country, and specifically domestic violence. Unfortunately, I have been privy to a lot of information from ladies who confide in me on their experience with domestic violence. Since I got married, this is the time when this information has become, to light, because it's usually married women who tell me about these things. And if there's one thing you should know, guys, I'm a total coward. When it comes to domestic violence issues, I am a coward. I do remember I came very, very close to a situation where I almost got hit by a guy when I was dating. And I was how old? This is before I even had my son. So I think I was about maybe 25 years old when I went to my, partner's house without informing him, just to surprise him with something that I had cooked for him, actually, because he was doing exams. So I cooked for him, took buses. Oh, that was a long story. I'll tell you that story one day. But the guy, for some reason, he had heard something from somewhere about me, from a specific lady. Women, sometimes you can be our own worst enemies. This lady who was a bit, envious of my relationship with this guy. She thought I wasn't worthy of the man because he was from her region of Africa and I was from this other region of Africa. So she was my friend, and unfortunately she was taking information to him, which didn't make sense. The way girls talk, And so I talked to her, we're friends, we're chatty, and then she takes that information, twists it around and takes it to him and stuff. So he wasn't happy and he charged at me, and I remember standing there with my chest right out, and I said, you want to hit me? You want to hit me? Are you sure? In America, you want to hit me? Okay, good, come. And I actually dared him. And I think because I dared him to hit me, he stood back and he thought about it and he asked me to leave. I left very fast and I went and sat outside, but I couldn't believe that I had come this close to a domestic violence situation. Now, this is not to berate any woman who has suffered domestic violence, but it's to say that we should have a zero tolerance policy as ladies to domestic violence. A zero tolerance policy. In this country of the UK, there are women who are African women who have experienced domestic violence at the hands of their partners, either in this country or outside of the country, back in their homelands, or even en route to this country. What I can say about this is my opinion about domestic violence. I think that, first of all, before you get married to anyone, you are yourself. It's about your identity. It's about who you are. You need to know yourself first. Know yourself. You need to love yourself first. Even the good book says that you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. And the assumption there is that you actually love yourself more than you love your neighbor. It cannot be that when you love yourself, you offer your body as a sacrifice to another person to be traumatized and tortured. I know that there are times when women are caught in domestic violence situations completely unaware. You can be caught unawares and somebody just lands a punch on you. But what I can say is that we women were given a sixth sense. That sixth sense tells us whether the person that we are with is the type of person who cannot control their anger, a person who has anger issues, a person who has limited self-control. It could be somebody who, likes to have things their way, somebody who's a quarrelsome person. And you see, domestic violence, like I said, this is mostly, I'm actually addressing women in this particular one mostly, but I'm not assuming that it's only men who, met domestic violence on women. Of course, there are plenty of women who also are very violent towards their men. Very violent, either physically or emotionally. But we know that domestic violence comes in all shapes and forms. There's spiritual violence, there's emotional violence, there's physical violence. They are all violence, okay? Whether you're using your mouth, whether you're using your hands, or whether you're using the spirituality to intimidate another person, to make somebody feel like they're not spiritual enough, that they're not godly enough. Because you see, spiritual violence is something that people don't talk about. They don't talk about it. When you now have a Miss Goody Two Shoes who thinks that she knows everything, or you have a man who basically always puts the holy book in front of your face all the time to justify their actions, or to coerce you to do things that you should not be doing, such as to be subservient, to be submissive, to be always agreeable, to never question, to be silent. There are many things, that the holy books also promote, which are not necessarily positive for women. I do remember that as we were growing up, we used to hear in the village. There was a time that when we were growing up, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story now, guys. As I was growing up, my father decided to move us from where we were living into the village, because he said he's not going to raise children who cannot speak the local language. So we moved actually closer to my grandmother, into my uncle's house. And that was a transition and a half. We went actually to our village called Kanyariri. And we stayed at my grandpa's place. And we stayed at my uncle's house. My uncle had built a very nice house, a 3-bedroom house, beautiful piece of land. And we stayed there for some time. Yeah, we stayed there for, I think I was in standard 6, in 6th grade. And I think we left there when I was in first form. Yeah, so about, 2 to 3 years we were there. And that was a very life-altering time for us. It was a very it was a time when a lot of things were highlighted and illuminated in my life. I had never in my life seen domestic violence or even heard anybody wailing. And this is when I feared domestic violence with every bone in my blood. Because I used to hear in the evenings, once in a while, not even once in a while, almost every day, there will be a woman who is screaming somewhere over there. She's screaming from her hut. Ow, ow, ow. And she's being beaten by her husband. The first thing you hear is, first of all, you hear a man who's actually, you hear the voice of a male who is singing. And he's singing, and the man is drunk. Completely drunk. He's singing very happily as he goes home. And the next thing you hear, a woman wailing, ow, ow. A woman is screaming. He's literally beating a pounced on his wife, yeah? And then when you listen to the stories of the villagers, you hear that actually that man loves her. The interpretation from many villagers is that if a woman is not beaten, if a man does not met violence on his wife, it means that he actually doesn't love her. Do you know, guys, that there are women who really believe that unless they receive a little punch or a slap or a pinch from their husband, that is physically, or unless they experience emotional violence, like, for example, unless the man cheats on her, berates her, mocks her, belittles her, unless, he does those things to make her feel, to put her in her place, he's not paying attention to her. And for those women, what I can say is any attention is better than no attention. Hi there.
I'll drive it in for you now. We'll have a look.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, now I'm back home having had a wonderful experience at Kwik Fit where they fixed my car. So let's get back to the story. Sorry for that commercial break. You see how friendly people are in Wales. They come to the window and you're like all excited. I'm always happy when I'm interacting with service providers in Wales. They're really sweet, especially guys. They're really, really nice, yeah? So now let's go back to the story that I was telling you about. Like when I grew up in the village, that is when I was exposed at first to domestic violence. Because before that, I was living a rather sheltered life. Where I hadn't actually been exposed to other families. We were living in our own domestic household, and my parents were getting along. I never saw domestic abuse, either physical or emotional, with them. But I used to hear about it, and I did have relatives who used to go through that, and I actually witnessed some of people who are very close to my family with bruises on them, women especially. Okay, I was rudely interrupted again. Oh my God. It's difficult to get a video together. But anyway, like I was telling you, I was never exposed before to this. So when I went to the village, when I was still a young girl, I was, how old? Maybe like about 10. That's the first time that I actually saw or heard. I really didn't see it, but I heard about abuse. And I heard that, because the ladies who are living in the area around us are actually relatives of ours. Yeah. When you go to church, you'll see that women sit on their own side of the pew and men are sitting on the other side. They don't really want to mix. I don't know. Especially once they introduce alcohol, you'll see that people are just not themselves and they're not really in their right mind. So, alcoholism was not something that traditional society really experienced too much, because you had to be initiated and be a respectable member of society in order to be allowed to drink alcohol. But now, because all these behavioral changing drugs are available, because alcohol is a drug, anytime, anywhere, it means that people have access to these mind altering and behavior altering things that can impact their relationships on how they treat people. So I did see quite a bit of women, and unfortunately for the men who were abused, although this is not really targeting men, the men who were abused, it was shameful for them and they were stigmatized. So they could not shout, they could not scream. They would just hold their heads down in shame, and it would be known that that man there in that household is an abused person. And it's very sad. So I remember, since I was very, very young, that saying to myself that this would never, ever happen to me. No matter what they say, that, the story is that if you're beaten most like that, then you're loved. I'm like, are you joking? What kind of psychopathic way is that to think about things? How twisted is that? Back now down to the UK. In the case of the UK, there are lots of services that are available. The government itself has its own website, gov.org. If you go to gov.uk, you will find information about national domestic helplines that are available to you. So how do you know that your partner is actually abusive? There is a national helpline, guys, for domestic abuse in the UK, and it's at the top there. It's 0808 2000 247. Ladies and men, with a simple search online, guys, I found this information. There's this organization called Refuge, and it talks about a free phone helpline, 24-hour national domestic abuse helpline, 0808 2000 247, here in the UK. And it describes abuse. What is abuse? Domestic abuse is a pattern of behavior on the part of the abuser designed to control the partner. It can happen at any point. So basically, control, right? So it tells you that if you are forced to change your behavior because of your partner or your ex-partner's reaction, you are experiencing abuse. It can happen to anyone regardless of age, background, gender, religion, sexuality, or ethnicity. However, statistics show most domestic abuse is carried out by men and experienced by women. I didn't say that, guys. This is actually here in the document itself, which is online. Here are some very good indicators, of abuse by your partner. They're jealous and possessive. Is he charming 1 minute, abusive the next? Does he tell you what to wear, where to go, who to see? Does he constantly put you down? Does he play mind games and make you doubt your judgment? Does he control your money or make sure that you are dependent on him for everyday things? Are you starting to walk on eggshells to avoid making him angry? Does he control your access to medicine or devices of care that you need? Includes your phone. Does he use anger and intimidation to frighten and control you? So it goes on to tell you how they can support you. You can see there's a lady on the phone, so you can call. You can send them a message. You can reach the helpline team. You can explore your rights and your options and also chat with them live. You can protect against them, and you can access other services. Okay. This is the reason why a lot of women feel very comfortable in developed countries such as the UK and the US because of these kinds of facilities. Then there's also, .gov.uk also provides information about how to get help. They say if English is not your first language, information can be translated into various languages. They do hire interpreters. There's Women's Aid, which has guidance documents for domestic abuse. And again, they also tell you about how to recognize domestic abuse. Does your partner or ex-partner or someone you live with cut you off from family and friends? You see, isolation, guys. Intentionally isolating you? Do they bully you, threaten, or control you? Do they take control of your finances? Do they monitor or limit your use of technology? Even things like access to Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, all that. If your partner is limiting or monitoring your use of these technology, that is domestic abuse, according to the government of the UK. Are they physically or sexually abusing you? That one is pretty, Domestic abuse is not only, though, just physical violence. It can also be what they say coercive control and gaslighting, making basically a mountain out of a molehill, blaming you. Economic abuse, which is financial abuse, where basically they may deny you money. They may also decide to take your paycheck and misuse it. They may also decide to misuse the family funds. They may decide to take loans without your knowledge and put you in an economic situation. Online abuse, that one we know about, which is stalking you online, for example, or abusing you online. Are they threatening you or intimidating you? That one I believe you understand. Are they emotionally abusing you? Are they sexually abusing you? And it goes on to say, the government goes on to say that anybody can be a victim of domestic abuse, regardless of gender, age, ethnicity, religion, or socioeconomic status. And then they say that if you believe that you are a victim of domestic abuse, there are signs that you can be looking for. Okay? Are you withdrawn? Are you feeling isolated from or being isolated from your friends and family? Do you have bruises? Do you have burns, bite marks? Have your finances been controlled or not being given enough to buy food, medication, or pay bills? Not being allowed to leave your house or stopped from going to college or to work? Can you imagine, guys? Yeah, your partner stopping you from going to college. Having your internet or social media being monitored or someone else reading your text, emails, or letters. Being repeatedly belittled. Being pressured into sex or sexual contact. Being told that abuse is your fault and that you are overreacting. So they tell you how to get help and support. And basically, in England, there's the helpline is Refuge National Domestic Abuse Helpline. And in Northern Ireland, in Scotland, in Wales, they have all that information there for you, okay? And nationwide. All you have to do is just go to gov.uk and find out this information on domestic abuse and how to get help. And in addition to that, just going through the website, there are organizations that specifically target women from the African or Black community. And one of those organizations is called Sister Space, SISTAH Space, Sister Space. So they call themselves their Sister's Keeper. And they say that they support women and families affected by domestic abuse whilst ensuring that cultural factors are considered. I'm reading as we speak, and that they're not only considered, but they're understood. So they work to ensure that cultural barriers, their service users are given equal support. Some of the interesting findings in the UK are that Black and African women represent a significant proportion of those who experience domestic violence in this country and domestic abuse. They say 86% of African or Caribbean heritage women in the UK have either directly been a victim of domestic violence or sexual abuse or know a family member who has been assaulted. 86%. Guys, we're talking about almost 90% of our community. We have either been victims of domestic abuse or we know somebody who is close who has been assaulted. Now, this is really, really, really unfortunate. Now, in terms of seeking help, though, stigma, mistrust, fear, and shame. Now, God forbid that anyone get to know that I'm being domestically abused, that I'm a victim of domestic abuse. God forbid anybody get to know. Okay, this is how a woman, a black woman, an African woman is thinking. Because historically, African and black women have been seen as strong and pillars of society, pillars of their families. So when a woman actually is a victim of domestic violence, it becomes very difficult for her to approach the authorities or even tell anybody about her predicament. So the problem with reporting is that only like 57% of women, only half of the women who experience domestic violence actually report it in the UK. And only 1% feel that they receive the type of care that is useful to them. And one of the things that the police have been trained to do in this country now is to recognize signs of abuse on black women. Because of our skin color, it may not be as evident. We may not turn red, for example. We just may be the same color that we are, we may have maybe a little bit hyperpigmentation, you may not notice, and we would most likely want to hide it, you see. So police are called, and sometimes, you find that they have a really difficult time identifying bruises on women. And so it becomes difficult for women to even report and feel that they have the evidence, so, to show signs of abuse. But the government is doing its best. One thing I do know is that from the reports, or from what I see from many women in this country, and I remember that Theresa May, she was fighting for the sufferers of domestic violence, because during the pandemic, domestic violence case reporting went up 400%. So that goes to show that probably with the increased amount of stress in the home through non-employment, losing your salary, anxiety, depression, increases the risk of women experiencing domestic abuse and domestic violence. We know that the BAME community in this society, black and minority ethnic community in this society, have a difficult time finding jobs. We talked about that before, and are usually on zero contract jobs. That creates a lot of stress and trauma within our families, because it makes it difficult for many black people to afford to live a comfortable life. And that, combined with the demands of the family, for example, on the man, a woman may be demanding, to have a new wig. I still need my wig. I need my ingredients to cook my food. I need to send money to my family at home. Why does our house have to look like this? Why can't we get new furniture? I need a new dress. All of these demands can make it really difficult on men in the household. They're already facing a lot of stress on the battlefield at work, and when they come home, they experience another level of stress. And this is not to blame women. This is just to say, trying to put things into context, to say that the BAME community experiences a lot of stress, and therefore the communication can break down very easily in the home. It can make it very difficult for women. My enemies are after me, you people. My enemies are after me. Today, how many things am I going to face before I can finish this recording? It's unbelievable. Okay, so talking about communication. Do you know I had to put this phone on flight mode so that I can finish? All right. I am determined to complete this recording. Very important topic on domestic violence. Domestic violence is like something that we try to sweep under the carpet. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to talk about it. It's something that is so shameful for many people who are experiencing it. And apart from that, apart from the shame, I think it's just the hurt. I think to imagine that somebody that you love is hurting you like that. Somebody that you care for, somebody you've sacrificed for, somebody that probably made you move from your country to come here to the UK or to whichever country you've had to move to. Upset your whole life, upset maybe your job, maybe you left a job that you enjoyed, maybe you left a home, you left family members, just to come and suffer in the household of this abuser is the hardest thing. And even if you didn't have to move houses you didn't have to move countries, the fact that you actually decided to upset your life and move in and agree to move in, share bills, and hope, it's like the death of a dream. It's like a death of hope. It's a very sad thing. You start getting into grieving mode, you start wondering and worrying. And one of the reasons that I believe that African women do not report domestic violence is because of three things. Number one, usually the status of their partner or themselves could be an issue, that maybe they don't have the paperwork, maybe they're illegal, or maybe it might affect, they might worry that it might actually affect the time frame within which they're able to complete their applications for either becoming, permanent residents or citizens of the country. Yeah. Number one. Number two, they might also worry about the job. They might worry for their partner. Even if their partner is abusive, they might worry about their partner, what will happen to them. We've grown up with this belief that as African women, we should tolerate. And we should tolerate a lot, and we should always protect. We are kind of like the protectors of the household. Yeah, so you'll find that a woman will protect an abuser very easily. We will do that. And the third reason why African women do not report is because of children. If you have kids, most women will do anything possible to try to maintain their marriage for the sake of the kids. The idea that children need financial stability, that they need a two-parent household, that they saw this growing up, they think it's normal. We normalize that kind of violence. So what I wanted to say to our people, to my African Queen Mo followers is, ladies and gents, violence is not acceptable at all, and it should never be. At the first sign of violence, run, take off, leave. And now I've shown you, you can go to the .gov page and get help. You can go to this organization called Sister Space and look for assistance there. Yeah, there are like those programs of the government that I talked to you about. There's also this one called Refuge, which is the 24-hour National Domestic Abuse Helpline. You can go to that helpline and also report. So there is, no reason why you should really accept abuse, really. Don't allow it to go on, because it can escalate. It can escalate to finding yourself either, homeless, on the street, in somebody else's house. You might find yourself injured in a very bad way. Mentally, you might have a big mental breakdown that forces you to go to hospital, and from which you may never recover, or you may actually lose your life. It's as simple as that. You may lose your life. You might get into a depressive mode where you'll now be dependent on drugs forever. So all I can say is that anybody who has experienced domestic abuse, anyone who has fears, any lady who may have fears that she may be experiencing domestic abuse, or feels that what she is experiencing is not normal, it is good to check. Talk to somebody that you trust, and most likely talk to somebody who is not partisan, somebody who is outside of your normal space, like outside of your friendships, because you don't want that information to come back to your abuser. Yeah, get on the phone, make the phone call, and make yourself happy, because your happiness depends on you, just like your security depends on you. And on that, I just say, to all my lovely ladies out there, hugs to you, hugs. And if you have experienced domestic violence and domestic abuse, just know you're not alone. There are lots and lots of people, and I have listened to reports and complaints from women that are about that domestic abuse, about getting beaten up. And I wonder, wow, those women are strong to have survived it. I want to finalize this by saying that a lot of people also don't report this issue, and they don't talk about it because you don't want to be seen as a quote-unquote feminist, or being misogynist, for example, or you don't want to be accused of only siding with women or wanting the downfall of men. You don't want that, and so that's the reason why many people don't report it and they don't talk about it, just because, you want to protect your reputation. But it's gotten to the point where now we have to realize that domestic violence cases have increased in this country 400%. That was during the lockdown period. And now, what about now? The financial crisis right now, economic crisis that we are experiencing now. What about that? You can imagine how many times domestic violence is going to increase and has increased. And this will also translate into children being in harm's way. So if not for yourself, at least for your kids, don't stay. Yeah, for your kids, look for an alternative arrangement. Even if it's a separation, whatever you're going to do, look for an alternative arrangement where you make sure that they are safe, just like you are safe. Okay, ladies? So with that, love you. Take care of yourselves, ladies. And remember, everybody was born with God inside them. So you're strong. You can do it. And yes, you can. Yes, you can do it. And you can start again. And you can thrive. And you'll be okay. All right. And on that note, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe. Thank you so much for the new subscribers. Seeing you there. Subscriber from Uganda, welcome. From other subscribers that I've seen there, thank you very much for subscribing to my channel. Share my channel. Remember, it's African Queen Mo in Cardiff. Always remember to write Cardiff at the end of African Queen Mo. Okay? Love you very much. Take care. Bye. Doo-doo.